Okay kids, your father has returned and this time he did not bring the milk with him. But of course I do gotta ask, how'd your past week go? Did you do anything exciting? Did you do anything fun? Oh, what was that? You were just waiting on me to drop another video? Well, that's sweet, but dick riding is forbidden on this channel, so stop all that goofy shit, bro. But as for me, I did get into something a little bit interesting here, so if you look on the top corner up here, I did do a little bit of a DJ set for a local magazine and creative outlet here within my city. So if you guys want to be able to support by a magazine, follow their pages, keep up with them and all things creative, follow the ad down here at the bottom as well. You might just see me spinning some tracks on their Instagram page, man, and I hope that with whatever future endeavors they got going on, they're able to achieve their goals at the highest caliber. But as for today's video, we gotta jump down the nostalgia rabbit hole, because if you didn't hear the news, Travis Scott finally dropped his Days Before Rodeo mixtape on streaming, and to absolutely no surprise, it created a bit of controversy. And no, it's not because somebody died while listening to the album. That only actually happens at the concerts, thank you. But people are a bit agitated with Travis because of how he's releasing this whole album and all the extra stuff alongside that, because on streaming we are getting the original Days Before Rodeo mixtape with a few bonus tracks, but if you want any of the fan favorites and cult classics, you would have to pay a bit extra on the Travis Scott website to be able to access that. Now this clearly seems to be a battle against pop artist Sabrina Carpenter for that #1 spot, because she's also pulling the same tactics herself, dropping a bunch of multiple variants of songs in her albums and doing a bunch of different vinyl exclusives and bullshit too. So it's basically a battle between a murderer and a midget, and I don't know about y'all, but I don't really like midgets that much. But I do think it is funny how for once in our lifetime it isn't Taylor Swift absolutely demolishing everybody for that #1 spot. But I guess all that time she spends flying around the world doesn't really give her time to push out more slop for the Tortured Poets department. But I bring this up because I want to be able to air up my grievances and my personal problem with how music is being released currently, and how I feel like it is negatively affecting the perception of mainstream music. And one of the things I tackled in there was how it's became pretty oversaturated with a bunch of new faces and new artists and new hit songs like every goddamn day. And a lot of people, a lot of the fans, the listeners, you know, they're getting kind of tired of that and are now starting to pursue different outlets now more than ever. And when it comes to releasing music, labels have been so desperate to try and get that hot new artist towards the #1 spot that they've been re-releasing artist songs and albums in like a million different variants to be able to try and boost those sales. Prime example, take Taylor Swift in the Tortured Poets department, right? See, there's so many damn variants of that album that it's actually quite embarrassing that an artist of her caliber is still so desperate to hold that #1 spot, to the point where she's even actively hindering artists like Charli XCX from being able to have a top spot in her own fucking country. And with Travis Scott finally dropping Days Before Rodeo on streaming, as stated before, he's been dropping these digital tracks that are vinyl exclusive, in which you would have to be able to buy a vinyl just to be able to even have digitally. And he's only doing all of this just to be able to boost the sales for Days Before Rodeo to try and get it that #1 spot. I think it's kind of comical how he's even doing this in the first place, because most of these digital exclusives that he's pushing out can literally be heard on SoundCloud right now. Like, dog, you're seriously gonna try and push Houdini featuring Playboy Cardi to me, even though I've had that song loaded in my Apple Music for almost a decade now? Like, I feel like we're just not shaming these artists enough for their soulless cash grab attempts. Like, for example, right, I keep seeing people gawking the new Destroy Lonely album, but if I'm keeping it 300%, this album sounds exactly like the last like 2-3 Destroy Lonely albums we've got. It's the same shit with Ken Carson. His album just sounds exactly just like the last couple of Ken Carson projects we've got. It's all just bloated, repetitive tracks just meant for TikTok streams. In a sense, with how music is being released today, kind of reminds me of how streaming platforms are operated today as well. The oversaturation of content and the constant nickel and dime tactics used against the supporters are now making people want to just leak the music for free instead of having to pay $40 fucking just to listen to 2 songs digitally. And then the artists would constantly complain about leaks and being able to support them, but listen, my life philosophy is, if I can get it for free, then it's best for me. And I get it, right? The artists gotta eat too, you know? They gotta make their money because the music industry is predatory. Especially when these artists tend to be wrapped up in really shitty deals, which means that they would have to drop in multiple different fashions if it means being able to pay back the label. But we're talking about some of the biggest names in the game pulling these tactics with absolutely no shame because they know that their fans will eat it up regardless. It's like a real-time enshittification of music, which is partially the reason why people are now becoming more musically eclectic than ever. There's a better underground sound that's being promoted more on social media that gives people a reason to stay away from the mainstream guys, and also the industry plants that tend to be forced down our throats. I think the music industry is also becoming aware of that as well, because with the constant releasing of different music variants, it shows that the rising stars and underground artists are taking away attention from the big names. So now those said big names are just trying to find as many ways as possible to be able to milk their loyal fan base while they still can. The game is changing, and I believe that we're all aware of that by now. The titans of before are losing their grip thanks to the likes of social media pages, online blogs, and influencers alike that are showing love to rising talent as a way to help listeners diversify their taste. And with how some artists like to blue ball their fans, it's no surprise that not everybody wants to play the game with them anymore. So in conclusion, the constant pumping out of different music variants I feel like is a shameless way for artists to be able to generate revenue, especially when you're just selling old leaks and cult classics as a desperate attempt to get the top spot. But that's simply just a result of today's capitalism and also the constant desire to be fed new content in today's entertainment era. But that's all the opinions I have on the multiple DBR drops and whatnot. You guys let me know your thoughts on down below in the comments or whatever the hell. I'll just be here vibing out, man. You guys have an amazing week. I want to thank you all for watching. I'll see you next Monday. Peace.
Oh my God.